Hello and welcome to another episode of the Uncommon Energy podcast. We've got a ton to talk about this week. We're going to start things off by talking about the Salt Lake City registration, which just kind of came out of nowhere. No real announcement, just boom, all of a sudden, here it is, Salt Lake City, go register. We've got our early impressions of the new Pokemon TCG expansion, Lost Origin. We're also going to be talking about the PTCG Live booth that was at Worlds. Yes, that's right. The PTCG Live developers made an in-person appearance at the World Championships. We're going to talk about that, what that was all about. We'll, of course, have everyone's favorite segment, Guess That Flavor Text. And then this weekend, the 2022-2023 season kicks off with 3 different tournaments here in North America. We've got the Baltimore Regional Championships. There's another regionals happening in Brazil, and then the Bilbao Special Event occurring in Spain. I am ready to get into it. My name is Trainer Chip Ritchie, and as always, I'm joined here by my co-host, Azul GG. What's up, Azul? How we doing? How's your week, man?
Pretty good, pretty good. Getting back into the swing of things as far as content creation goes. So, like the
I feel
back to the
like that
daily
is the
upload.
sentence you've said the last like 5
Yeah,
episodes.
but I feel like this is like I guess not back to the swing of things, but I've actually been grinding for a couple weeks now, which is
I have
that's something
noticed
I've
you've
not been
been posting
able.
a lot more videos. Yes.
Yes, which is something I've not been able to do for a while. Well, actually, I just got back from Worlds 2 weeks ago? Is it 3 weeks? It's
It
been
was
a little
like
while actually,
3
isn't it?
weeks, yeah.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, now with the new set out and everything, feels good to be, back to uploading daily on the YouTube, streaming almost daily, stuff like that. And unfortunately, it's going to get cut a little bit short here towards the end of this month. Pretty busy, couple regionals and a wedding to go to. So I'm not going to be doing that much content over the next couple weeks, but trying to get as much as I can done now to hopefully stay caught up over those weeks. But how about you, Chip? How was your week? How's the first first couple weeks of parenthood been now?
It's good, man. It's good. It's still crazy times, still a lot of new things. I actually have to give a big thank you, though, real quick, to the Pokemon Company who sent my son a gift, a bunch of how-to books about, with Pokemon, ABCs, 1, 2, 3, shapes and colors, a bunch of plushes, and then a kind note welcoming a new trainer into the world. It was really cool. They reached out to me and asked if it would be all right for them to send this little gift to baby Samuel. And of course, I was like, please, thank you. That is amazing. Very kind of them. So thanks to the Pokemon Company for that. But yeah, being a parent has been, it's still something we're learning about. I feel like we actually got pretty lucky early on, and he wasn't crazy crying and fussing through the night, which is probably a little abnormal. Like, we actually would have to set alarms to wake up to feed him at night. Like, he wasn't like crying, waking us up, which is what I think happens a lot of the time. But now, a couple weeks in, he is starting to he's found his voice a little bit, we'll say, being a little bit more restless through the night. So we have been sleeping a little bit less the last few nights compared to the last couple weeks, but things are good, man. Things are good.
It's good to hear.
So we are going to kick things off this week, starting with the Salt Lake City Regional Championships. Now, we've talked a ton about registration for these Pokemon regionals over the last few weeks. It seems like things have been in a pretty good spot as far as for Baltimore, Peoria. Things were, there was a little bit of drama around Baltimore's registration, but overall, the announcement came. People were able to register. I think you can still register for both events. I don't think that they're quite capped, which is definitely a good sign as well. I went online because I'm not registered for either of them and tried to see if I could register, and I didn't get stopped. But I do believe both are over 1,000 masters for the TCG. So really good sign. It seems like it's going to be a really strong start to the season for the Pokemon TCG, which I'm a big fan of. But then out of nowhere, this Salt Lake City Regionals registration drops, and this feels like people kind of got blindsided by this. So how did you find out about it, Azula? Did you get registered? Did you did you get a spot in there?
Yeah, I did get registered. I don't think it's filled up yet. I actually don't know. I guess you'd have to go over there and check, to be honest, because I can't. If I
I'm
click,
sure it's not.
I have I can see the go to registration button available, so I think that means
I
you
will
can
attempt to
still register.
register. Give me one moment.
Yeah, go through the initial process. But yeah, no, I just saw it in a tweet from another player, Alex Wilson. Just saw their tweet and they were like, "Yo, for anyone who didn't know, because most of you probably don't know, registration is going to be up. It looks like for Salt Lake City in 30 minutes. And I was like, oh wait, what? And I went over to the RK9 the RK9 page, and yeah, it was 6 p.m. Mountain time. I don't know why they would use the Mountain time. I guess that is where
That's
Salt
where
Lake
Salt
is,
Lake
but
City is.
nobody knows Mountain time. Just convert it to EST or PST, and so many more people will like. People look at Mountain time, they're
Okay,
like,
that's
I don't
fair.
know what time that is.
That's a fake
Like,
time zone, honestly.
it is. That's the fakest of time zones. Like Mountain time is the fakest unless you actually live somewhere where Mountain time is. So that was the first thing. I was like, well, they probably should have converted that to EST or PST to make it easier for people because like those are the big time zones. Like it's not. I'm not trying to be discriminating against other time zones. Those are just the two big time zones. No one cares about Central
Don't, bro,
or
dude.
Mountain.
Nobody's gonna come after you because you're you're not gonna get canceled
Someone's
for
gonna come at me
talking
for
trash
Mountain
about
time.
Mountain Time, bro. It's
Mountain
okay.
timers are gonna be coming out of their mountains. And
Crawling out from under the mountains, or they're just dwarves that live in mountains.
yeah, the dwarves from Lord of the Rings are coming out of their mountain and come after me for calling out Mountain time. But yeah, no, I just saw it on Twitter. It just dropped on Twitter. No official tweet from the organizers or Play Pokemon, just the community, coming together, realizing it was happening, putting the information out there for everyone else to see. And yeah, I got easily registered on time. I'm pretty sure you can still register
You
over there
can. I
right
just tried to
now.
register. It is still open. So
It'll probably still be open when this episode actually goes live because we're,
yes.
a little bit in the past right now, but not too much. So if you haven't registered for Salt Lake City Regionals, you should probably go do that still just to be safe, or Baltimore or Peoria if you plan on going to those, go register for those as well. But yeah, it kind of came out of nowhere for sure.
And part of the issue here, I think, is the fact that the organizer does not have social media. There is no Twitter account to follow to get live updates from Team Northwest, I believe, is the group putting on this regionals. So if you don't know, I've got this tweet pulled up here on the YouTube channel showing Christopher Szymanski giving a little bit of information here to everyone. The regionals this season in North America are kind of broken up into three different organizers. We got the East Coast, which is going to be run by Overload Events. That'll be Baltimore, Toronto, Orlando, Charlotte, and BDL. I don't know what airport BDL is.
Sure.
um,
Well, that's going to be Baltimore.
no, BWI is Baltimore.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
one of the
I
later
don't know.
ones. Anyway, but oh, hang on. I think I've got the regional schedule pulled up here.
And
Hartford.
I'm not.
It's probably Hartford.
Okay. Yeah, BDL. I've never flown into a BDL. I've flown into Hartford all the time.
Yeah, I
Is it
also think it's
BDL?
funny that Christopher put all the airport codes as the locations instead of like the
I mean, that
city
is
that they're
to
in.
be honest,
It is, it
to
is.
an extent.
And then the middle of the country, or the Midwest, whatever you want to
Central.
say, is going to be, yeah, Central is going to be day 2 events. There's going to be Peoria, Arlington. Man, I really should have looked up these airport codes before I started reading this. But yeah, just kind of all the regionals that take place in the
I
middle
remember.
part of the country, and then there's going to be
Yeah.
Team Northwest, which is going to be all the western stuff, Salt Lake City, like we mentioned. And as you can see here on Christopher's tweet, there's no symbol to go to their account and get
There's no
updates or anything
Twitter.
like that. So they don't really have any social media. So really the only way to get updates from them is to just check their website and just refresh and hope to get more information, and hopefully they update it at a reasonable time. But it's just like it's really in the age of Twitter. There's no it feels like that is the best way for there to be announcements, or either on Twitter or on the official Pokemon website. That would really
Yes.
be kind of the what should happen for these regionals is there should be a tweet from Play Pokemon, and there should be a post on the Pokemon website saying that these registrations are live for these tournaments when they go live. But for some reason that has never been a thing.
I think Play Pokemon's tweeted a couple times,
Just
I
for the
think.
internationals.
Okay, just for the internet, which doesn't make any sense. These are Play Pokemon is the what is it? That it's the organized play of the Pokemon TCG, VGC, Unite. Like that is like the encompassing of all the tournaments being run, right? They don't run the tournaments. So I guess you could argue Play Pokemon actually runs the ICs, right? Whereas they don't run the regionals. But how is there so much disconnect between like Pokemon trusting these people to run their tournaments, but then their official tournament Twitter doesn't retweet or tweet out the registration for these tournaments, only the ICs, which those are actually run by Pokemon and Worlds as well. But these ones are like you're still trusting these people to run your events. You should also make it like Play Pokemon is the Twitter for
Yeah.
tournaments. Why is that not tweeting when registrations go live for
Yep.
regionals? Like a week before. Well, I mean, of course, yeah. Whenever registration is available, it should tweet it out alongside it, and they should be organized. And the TO should be like, "Hey, Play Pokemon Twitter. We're opening registration for our event at this date. We're going to tweet about it. You should tweet about it as well." And then they both tweet about it simultaneously. And at some point leading up to the registration, of course, this one just kind of got dropped on us from people just checking RK9 Labs, and even RK9 only tweeted about it like 30 minutes prior to registration being live.
Yeah, like the
So
usual places that we tell people to follow to get updated on things. Like the big two would be Arcanine Labs, Christopher Szymanski, and then Will Post is another great person to follow for like all these tournament updates and stuff. And Christopher Szymanski, his tweet was how I originally saw about it. He said apparently registration for Salt Lake City opens in 17 minutes. Tell a
yeah.
friend or something, and then links the two tournaments. So it's like even the people who are the most in the know we're not in the know about this.
Yeah, which is a little bit ridiculous. And then, like you even said, there should be some kind of post on the main website. Like, and that's where you go to find tournaments. Can you even find regional tournaments on
Like the
the
event
event locator right
locator.
now?
You used to
Can you?
be able to.
Yeah, I mean the event locator. It's also like I haven't used it in so long, but
I used
it
to use
looks
it
a way
all the
nicer.
time. Whenever I was looking for like league cups and stuff in the area, right?
They've done a major update to it. Yeah, it looks way nicer. Um,
I just Googled Pokemon event locator and it's like,
Apparently there's a tournament coming up
okay,
on the
there we go.
17th, near me. What do we got going on?
Is it like Pokemon? Because I think Pokemon League is back, right? So
Yeah.
that's probably what it is.
But yeah, I don't know if you can search for. Have you used to be able to search for regionals on here? I mean, either way, I mean, I kind of like if you're able to find, there should be somewhere to like find major tournaments coming up. I mean, maybe this is more so to find local stuff, which is fine, but there should be an easy resource to find that is published somewhere on the Pokemon.com site where you can, you know, there should be like a tournaments tab, right? Or play Pokemon events. It should be under the play Pokemon events. Okay, they got the 2022 championship series. What else do they got on here? I haven't
Would
looked
it
on this
shock
place in
you
a
to
while.
know that if you look at Baltimore, Maryland, there is nothing on here that says that there's a regional championships in Baltimore?
If we look where?
Like I'm looking at the event locator, I pulled up Baltimore,
Oh,
and there's nothing about the Baltimore regional championships.
yeah, which is just so like, yeah. If I go to like that's just so bizarre. Why is there not something there? And yeah, if I click on play Pokemon events under Pokemon.com, is there? Uh, I don't even see anything for like the upcoming regionals. There's like nothing. There's Play Pokemon Team Challenge Season 4 is about to begin. Learn about Play Pokemon. A Pokemon VGC World Championship to remember. A look back at the 2022 Pokemon TCG World Championship. But there's nothing about the new season happening. You can scroll down to the regional championships. It does have them listed. Well, no, is this for 2022? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so if you on the main page scroll down and click on Pokemon Regional Championships, it takes you to the page for 2022. It doesn't even take you to the announcement for the 2023 regionals. They're
This
just
is
always
bad.
the website has just always notoriously been so far behind, and there's
It
really
looks,
no good excuse or reason for it.
yeah. And then somewhere here under when you click on Play Pokemon events, it should be like one of like the new posts should be register for the Salt Lake City Regional Championships happening, yada yada yada. And then when you click on it, it should just like take you to a page where you can then click on a link to take you to Arcanine Labs to register.
Yeah.
But I don't know, it just feels so weird that it doesn't do that. Like that is just so bizarre. But yeah, I have to find out it on Twitter from unofficial sources. So got to go out of your way to like stay a little bit connected on Twitter, I guess, and I guess Facebook as well. I'm sure it got posted over on Facebook, but I would definitely say Twitter is the spot to get your information nowadays for keeping up with this kind of stuff, which apparently you have to go out of your way to keep up with now. It's like getting worse as the season begins.
So we've had an event registration process for all three of the organizers now. We had Overload Events, who's doing the East Coast. And again, once again, we're just talking about North America here, since that's where Azul and I both live. Obviously, there's a whole other set of processes for these events that are taking place in other parts of the world. But here in North America, we've got the East Coast Overload Events, the Central Day 2 events, and then the West Coast being Team Northwest. We've had regionals for all three, Baltimore, Peoria, and Salt Lake, as far as registration goes at least. Overload Events registration fee was $68.90. Day 2 events was like $66 and something, I think, right?
Yeah,
And then
60
Team
or something.
Northwest, everyone was kind of flirting around with the number.
No one
Nobody
wanted to do
wanted to
it.
really go commit to it, but Team Northwest, they did it. The full on $70 price tag to play at a regional championships. You love to see it, don't you, Azul?
Yeah, so they've done it. It's full on 70. Everyone basically rounded all the other ones up, of course, and it's been like a hot topic in the Pokemon community, which has definitely become less hostile and more so just people just want to see receipts, right? They want to know why it's costing so much. And we kind of have been a little bit more neutral on it. We're like, well, I mean, what if venues are just costing that much, right? And I'm sure stuff in like more the closer you get to the West Coast, I'm sure stuff gets more expensive. Um, I would assume not where you need to charge people 10 cents more expensive, but like if $70 is just the go-to price point, then maybe that's just gonna be it for regionals from here on out. Once again, I said it, I'll say it again. I said it last podcast. I do feel like juniors and seniors should not be paying $70. And I think it was $70 again for
It
this one. I
was,
don't know
yep.
if I yeah, I don't know if I can check that, but
I see it, yep.
and I am kind of curious, like it is they are different, but they're pretty close. Now, did I wonder if I assume the organizers have to talk to each other somewhat about this kind of stuff, right? Or maybe they don't. And did they all just end up at about the $70 price point? Is that just kind of maybe the entry fee for stuff like when you run a convention like this nowadays? Like maybe that's just what it has to entail.
Yeah, I'm not sure that. I mean, it could definitely be the case, but once again, we just don't really see where the money's going. It's just like that you're having to pay $70 to play in the tournament. It is what it is. There's really no point in harping on it much more because we talked about it the last couple weeks now. Um, but yeah, regionals are more expensive. The cost of doing business is going up. If you want to play, you gotta pay, and it turns out the price to pay is $70 from here on out. So budget that into your plans through the rest of the season, depending on how many regionals you're planning to go to.
Yeah, I would assume it wouldn't go any higher. So we'll just see if maybe some of them are cheaper, and then I think that would be a good tell as to it's probably kind of price pointed to the cost of the venue. Like if some of them are cheaper, it's like, well, this venue was that much cheaper, so we can charge you, $55 or whatever.
I mean,
So we'll have to.
surely it's much cheaper to host an event like this in Peoria, Illinois, than it is in Salt Lake City, right? So I mean,
Yeah,
but is
there
it
wasn't a big of a.
$4 a person cheaper, or should it be more than that cheaper?
Yeah,
Or do
that's
you
a good
just
question.
set a blanket price? This is what all of our regionals are going to cost this year. So now, when we see any overload events regionals, are they all going to be $68.90, or is it going to change between location? Or when we see Team Northwest, are they all going to be $70, or will once again it change depending on the location? And the West Coast ones, like you mentioned, are generally more expensive destinations. It's generally more expensive to get to the West Coast as well. Even if you live on the West Coast, I feel like a lot of the times it can be a bit pricier anyway. But you know,
Yeah, and maybe that's why the couple of the numbers are a little bit weird, like the 69.90. Maybe they took the average. Maybe they just took the average of what they would have to charge for each different venue. Um, at least for those two, like they were like, well, for this one we could charge 55, but this one we'd have to charge 75. Maybe they took all those numbers for each of the regionals they're going to run and they just averaged it and they came up with 66.50 or whatever it was.
also
And
before we
that's just
move
like,
on, I do want to say we are having our first regionals this week in Baltimore. We'll talk about that shortly. We still have no information from Pokemon on how many championship points you need for Worlds. We don't know for sure how many championship points are awarded for regional championships. I think everyone is just assuming it's going to be the same as last year, but it's like an irrelevant number if we have nothing to work towards. We don't
yeah,
know how many points you need for Worlds. So it's just, and we don't have confirmation 100% on the pricing. Once again, I think everyone's just kind of assuming it'll be the same. It would just be really nice for that information to have been confirmed before we actually play the first regionals.
I
So
mean,
not
before you
having that
even,
information is putting people in a little bit of a
yeah.
questioning state.
It'd be nice to have that information like before you booked flights and hotels and
Yeah.
like decided to travel or take the weekend off. Like, and that's not maybe as big of a deal. A lot of people, including myself, would just like to go to Pokemon events, hang out with friends and just play in the tournament competitively. And it's a little bit less so like a huge tie, especially for like people who are like local. Everyone's gonna still, even if they don't play to try and get their worlds invite, a lot of people still just want to go and play, right? But, and I don't think it'll be that egregious one way or the other as far as pricing goes or CP is that it would be like this, all of a sudden a ton of people wouldn't have gone to this depending on what they end up announcing. But it still would be like it still just kind of feels like that's the natural order of the information flow in the current day and age where we should already know that a month ago or when they initially announced regionals at Worlds, like
Also,
the day
no
before
announcement
Worlds.
yet for the Latin America International Championship state, which I think is becoming
Yep.
an increasing. The longer they wait, the bigger of an issue it becomes for the players because booking international flights is not cheap, and the longer you wait, the more expensive they get. So people are just kind of handcuffed, hoping that Pokemon will announce that date soon. It just hadn't happened.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, yeah. There's a lot. They're really behind this year, and I mean, it's just sad to see because I feel like they were getting better pre-COVID
Yep.
a little bit, but now it's just kind of just lost all progress, and we're just no announcements for. And like once again, like I even mentioned this, like they've had 3 years to come up with their plan for CP, for prizing, to get the dates for the. Well, I guess maybe the dates for the LAIC is a little bit different, but if they want to like restructure things as far as CP and prize support goes, they've had 3 years to do that. Like this should have been announced
And
so
they had
long
even
ago,
less to do
right?
if it's just going to be really similar, right?
Yeah. So,
Copy paste, update the
we'll see.
website.
I did think I saw one comment on Twitter, and it didn't get a ton of traction. I didn't see too much else talking about it, so I don't know if there was any legitimacy behind that. Um, but someone mentioned that like TOs now have the responsibility for the prize support. Is basically what the gist of their tweet looked like. And that was kind of their thing, like in defense of the $70 prize. I forget who tweeted it, and I don't know how
I
much
did not
legitimacy
see
there is
that.
behind it. Yeah, and there was, like, no traction behind it. I didn't see anyone else mentioning it, so I kinda wrote it off, but now that we're talking through everything, I did remember seeing something like that, that they
Huh.
took on a bigger burden this season. I don't know where their information came from, so I don't know if it was legit or anything, but, I mean, that could be it. Maybe the TOs, are having to put up the prize support, and maybe they're just waiting for the other TO to announce they're waiting for the other TOs to announce what their prize support is so they can try and match it or do better or something. I don't know. Hopefully Pokemon, because as far as I know, Pokemon provided the payout for
I believe so, yes.
cash payout. They've always provided that, and they provide the booster boxes, I believe, as well. And then everything else is on the TOs from there. Like they give them the money, the prize pool, and then the TOs put on the rest of the show. Besides the stream, the stream is also run by I think it's ESL. I don't know. I used to be ESL at one point, but someone's doing else is doing that besides the TOs. They just have to find the space where they go. But so I don't know. I mean, if that's it, that would make a little bit of sense as to why it's maybe being delayed.
Who knows? Hopefully, we find out that information soon. In the meantime, we will all be sitting here waiting as patiently as we can. But moving on, of course, there was a new Pokemon TCG expansion that just released this past weekend, Lost Origin. I wrote in our outline Lost Origins.
I
I,
keep doing that. I was doing that so much when I was like my initial like titles for YouTube videos and stuff. I was putting origins and
Lost
everything.
Origin. It's
Well,
just
Lost
there's
Origin
just
just
one
sounds
origin
weird.
that got lost,
Yeah.
Azul. Not all of them.
Yeah.
We only lost one.
All right. Well, you start ranting about that. I gotta let the cat out of the room. I'll be right back.
Azul's got an anxious cat here. But yeah, the new set came out this past Friday, so it has been out on PTCGO and PTCG Live, I believe, for a few days now. So that's been out on both PTCGO and PTCG Live. So people have had a chance to kind of play, experiment. There's been a couple tournaments with the new set legal. Azul, you've been streaming a bit. Like we said, you've been getting back into the swing of things with content. So
Every week.
what are some of the decks that you have played, and what are some of the standouts to you? What are some of the flops? Obviously, it's still a little early, and we'll go into kind of more thoughts on Lost Origin next week. But for now, just early impressions on the set.
I mean, the Lost engine, whatever you want to call it, seems fairly good. The Comfy, Colress into Mirage Gate sometimes not actually, with stuff like Cramorant, and just some kind of the Lost box decks. You don't actually need the Mirage Gate to pull off some pretty big attacks. So all that seems good. Giratina, not the new Palkia, I don't think, which is a good thing. Not like the next in the line of, Mew, Arceus, Palkia. We're not going to get another one, which I think is probably for the best. It's not to say Giratina is bad, but it's not the next broken card that's going to be 30% of the meta.
I'm looking at some of
Um,
these results here from the online events that have been completed, and there's like a ton of Curum Palkia, like a ton.
there is some Kyurem, yeah.
No, not some, like a ton. Like it
I
seems like
think,
a huge amount of what has been played so far in
yeah.
these tournaments.
I mean, it's like a new deck, right? So a lot of people want to play. I don't know how good it actually is. It kind of just seems like Ice Rider. Like I don't know how it's that much better than Ice Rider. Of course, I haven't played with Kyurem yet, Played with Zorak, which is definitely better than I thought it was. Um, Once again, nothing broken. Nothing seems truly broken from the set. A lot of good stuff. I think the biggest thing to come out of it in general is the Lost engine and just how many decks it really can enable to be, reasonable decks as opposed to kind of just being bad. So yeah, the Lost engine, biggest thing to come out of the set, and everything else has seemed pretty solid so far. So that's really cool as well. Like, yeah, stuff like Kiram, Giratina, Zorak, they all seem solid, which is cool. Like we haven't had a set like this that has felt so well rounded. I feel like in a while, and of course, I'm sure some of these will end up being quite a bit worse than they initially seem, even with some tournament results behind them, because people just want to play the new stuff, and if everyone's playing new stuff, even if your new stuff is bad, no one else's new stuff is great yet. So you're going to beat them anyways, right? So lots to learn still, but very, very much enjoying it so far.
Yeah, I've only played a little bit personally. Just had a lot going on. I will definitely play a bunch more after Baltimore and kind of like as things are getting geared up for Peoria, just to like familiarize myself with the new set quite a bit more. But I did play on PTCGO for like an hour and a half, 2 hours the other night, and I only played Zone engine deck, which was Comfy, the Mirage Gate, the Colress, all that stuff with amazing rare Reshiram, so not even an attacker from the new set, and that was actually a ton of fun. And I feel like you said, the Lost engine is pretty good. You get to see a lot of cards. It kind of reminds me of the Jirachi Stellar Wish for Welder decks of old, where your
Definitely.
only supporter really is the Colress's experiments. Like I was playing a couple bosses orders, but that was it. 4 Colress and 2 bosses orders. I had some Raihans in there at one time, ended up getting rid of them because you just kind of want to fly through the deck, it feels like, and get to that 7 cards in the Lost Zone very consistently on turn 2. Cramorant really surprised me as just like a good attacker, where it's pretty easy to get 4 cards in the Lost Zone turn 1 going second. So doing 110 damage on turn 1 going second is pretty good, especially if you're taking a prize on like a Sobble or a Comfy, or just getting that first knockout even on like a Meloetta or something like that. I've had a lot of
Yeah.
fun with this set. I'm excited to explore it a bit more for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely super sick. Definitely excited for it as well. But when we're talking about a lot more about that
Yeah.
next week, talk about PTCG Live, the booth at Worlds up next. And I actually wish I had had a chance to actually sit down and talk with some of the devs that were there. I don't really know too much of what they had going on there, to be honest. Like the devs were there when I like walked past the booth. I was like playing every single day. I was there, and by the time I was done playing, I was just super tired, so I never ended up going to check it out. But every time I walked past the booth area, there wasn't a whole ton of setup going on. It was just kind of like they had this extra space that was just, and the booth was just at the front of like the hall that was just kind of open. So I think behind the booth there were just a bunch of other, maybe staff area or something. So there wasn't very much to the booth. It didn't look like. I don't think you could play PTCG Live at all, as far as I could tell. I actually don't know. Um, but there's basically a little area where you could walk up, and the devs were there, as far as I could tell. You could walk through the table and go talk to them, I guess, about PTCG Live. It looked like more of like an information booth about PTCG Live.
Yeah, so
But we do have some.
what
Oh, go
Azul was
ahead. Go ahead.
talking about here is the just at the World Championships there was a booth set up for PTCG Live, and from the picture here on Twitter, it actually does look like there's a couple tablets here where maybe there's like a demo or just people able to kind of take a look at the game and see how things work and all. And there were
Okay.
some devs present, and it seems like there was an opportunity for people to kind of ask questions, give feedback, and see their thoughts, which is really cool to see. Was this from the picture on Twitter? It looks like it's not like in the main event hall. Was this
No,
like
it's not.
kind of off to the side, like, or it definitely was not. It does not appear. I wasn't there. Azul was. It does not appear though like it was like a feature in the main
No.
area for the World Championships.
It was not, which like it wasn't that much space either. It was kind of like you can even see in the picture, for those of you on YouTube, maybe I don't know if you have pulled
I
up
do,
for them to
yeah.
look at Chip. But yeah, like behind them is a bunch of hall area. Uh, but no one, you couldn't go there as like a competitor or a spectator. So I think that's just like it's at the front of maybe like the staff area. I don't even know. Like it's just at the front of a hall, and so like, and it's not that much stuff going on there. I don't know why that wasn't in the main hall. at all as well. Maybe it's a little bit loud. It is kind of dark in there as well. So actually, that could be why. But less people are going to notice it and see it, especially because you only see it if you come. There was like two main entrances to the convention center. You did walk past the PTCG live booth if you came from the main entrance, but a lot of people came from the back entrance because the train actually got off closer at the back entrance. And a lot of people were staying on that side of the convention center as well. So a lot of people didn't even go to or come from the front entrance if they didn't want to. There was some stuff going on outside there. There was like the Pokemon Go thing and everything. So if you wanted to go over there, you had to go that way. But like a lot of people probably didn't even see or know this booth existed because of kind of how it was positioned in the convention center. So I mean, yeah, it was kind of weird and like awkwardly placed over there. It felt like for sure, and it wasn't that much space either. So I don't know why it wasn't in the main hall.
So we got to give
Um,
big thanks to the Kalos Network over on Twitter. These are all things that they posted, questions that they asked of the devs, and kind of some of their responses. So we're going to go through some of these things, some comments from TCG Live developers. Not anything we've had before, really. Like kind of just a couple forum posts here and there. It feels like. But yeah, big shout outs to Kalos Network for asking some questions and posting them, sharing them online for everyone to see and react to. So let's go through it here. A bunch of different bullet points here. They said number one, all of the mechanics had to be written from scratch. So I don't think this is really a surprise. You're kind of starting
yeah,
anew. PTCGO is developed by an out of house studio. PTCG Live is being developed by the Pokemon Company International. So no real surprise that they had to start from scratch. I'm sure that is a ton of work, but it's a big company. They got a lot of money. You can pay a lot of
yeah,
people to do the work, right?
yeah.
Number two, the YouTuber feedback was very useful, if not brutal. And I think that we were probably contributors of that. I do want to be clear. Our intentions are never to berate or like I feel like it's really easy for people whenever they're giving harsh feedback, but true feedback, but harsh feedback. It's very easy to forget that there is a real person on the other end of that worked on this thing. um but sometimes you work on something and it's just not as good as it could be, right? And
Yep.
it's a tough thing to convey to someone in a loving way, but it does. I hope that all developers know that the feedback comes from a place of we love this game so much, right?
We just want it to be the best it can be.
Yes.
So when it's not, or there's a bunch of stuff seeming to be done wrong or poorly, like I mean, it's good to talk, especially in this kind of landscape, right? Where it's like the biggest brand in the world coming out with a trading card game client that is definitely worse than the previous trading card game client
Yeah.
in just like an enjoyment standpoint. There's obviously some like the crafting system is obviously great, but that does not make up for like I'm not gonna sit there and craft cards on stream for 8 hours. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not all I want to do on PTCG Live is craft cards. I want to play some games of Pokemon,
Yes.
but it's a very unenjoyable experience overall. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of work to be done. It still feels like, which is like, I mean, yeah, there's that first bullet point of all the mechanics had to be written from scratch, which is crazy. Like they admit that, like it's just so crazy. I think one of the most bizarre things out of all this is that the game was ready to release, or they wanted the game to release with Fusion Strike.
Yeah.
Release with Fusion Strike, not beta release. Like it seems like they wanted the game to release with Fusion Strike, right? Like, and nope.
Wasn't even close. And we're already. I mean, what Fusion Strike was like last year's winter set, right? So we're only a few months away from 1 year since that
Of when
time.
they, yeah,
We're coming up on a year since the game came out, right? Like it's pretty close, since the beta
yeah,
came out, I should say. So it's been a long time. A lot of people lost their collections that fateful day a year ago, myself, yourself
yeah.
included. But anyways, number three is development is going well, and the beta is giving them exactly what they needed.
All right. I mean, that's another one where it's like, but how long? And this is like something I've actually brought up recently about PTCG Live is like, okay, they recognize they've done a poor job initially, right? They're working on it, which is good. They're improving, but there seems to be an endless cycle of trying to keep up with bugs, and maybe that's because half the team is working on the new look of PTCG Live, which means maybe once they can convert those people and be like, okay, this is a new look. We obviously don't need all these people working on this continuously. Maybe put two people on it, and everyone else come back to helping us, fix bugs, get the engine ironed out so that less bugs happen when new sets, are introduced into the game. or already start preemptively working on, getting those new sets into the game. Um, but if it's going to be an endless, kind of revolving door of bugs every time a new set drops, like that's not good enough, right? Like even if it takes, like especially if it's going to take them a week or so to fix some of these bugs, that's just not good enough in this day and age. Like to be as big as Pokemon is with the trading card game plan, when the game officially releases, if the next set drops and there's game breaking bugs off the rip, like a lot of them, um, and they don't it takes a long time to get fixed, like that's not good enough. That's when you need to hire more people or better people to get on the job at that point. So and we'll see where that goes, right? It says the beta is giving them exactly what they needed, but what is the time frame of how much information do they need? Like, are we going to be here for another 2 years? Like, it's still giving them what they need. Like, it's giving them what they need, but at what rate? And at what rate are they actually, getting
Yeah.
things developed, right?
Yeah.
So it's already almost been a year since it seems like when they wanted to initially release PTCG Live. How much longer are we going to be in this beta for? Because betas like once again in this day and age, betas don't exist anymore. Really, like as far the last time I played a game of a beta, it's always like a week or a weekend, right? Like I can't even
Yeah.
remember last time I played, and it used to be this way where betas would be longer, but yeah, betas for games like this is just not a thing anymore. I don't know.
Also,
And to say that it can't be is like, I guess maybe not wrong, but like I said, like in this day and age, I feel like there's people who could definitely have put out PTCG Live at Fusion Strike in a pristine condition, right? So there's people,
sure.
it can be done. Pokemon is a very big brand. They have a lot of money. It should be done. I think that's one of the biggest things that some people like to kind of ignore when people complain about it, but it's like it just like they got the money to do it, just do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do want to clarify real quick. I just remembered that I did kind of misspeak. So like they wanted the game to be ready at Fusion Strike. It wasn't, but the beta did not come out almost a year ago. The beta
Oh
came
yeah, yeah,
out with Brilliant Stars, which was like in February or March, right? So a little
yeah.
bit of a misspeak on my part. I do apologize. So number 4 here says new people have been brought onto the team who worked on other card games. So this is kind of, this is a good sign for sure, I think.
Yeah.
Having more people, I don't know if this is replacing people or just expanding the team, hopefully just expanding the team, because I think the more people working on it, probably the better, right? Just getting more hands on deck, dealing with all these different potential bugs and all these interactions. And I mean, because there's so many, I can't imagine I know very little. I shouldn't say very little. I know nothing about programming and like coding and all of that stuff. I can't imagine how difficult it is to code a card game where there's like so many possible interactions that could take place. So yeah, I mean, hopefully, like more hands on deck is definitely something that it's being beneficial to the development process, right?
Yeah, hopefully it's not a revolving door once again, right? Where it's
Right.
like new people coming in, new bugs coming in, new bugs going out constantly. It's not new people coming in, old people going out. And it is just kind of building a bigger team because it does seem like they are not they were not equipped initially for the task at hand. So hopefully they are getting to the point where they're equipped and they can, catch up, like I said. Like as long as they're gonna catch up and it's not gonna take 5 years to catch up and get to the point where this thing can release. Um, hopefully that's just that is what that is and not a revolving door.
So there's 3 parts to this tweet. So that was all of part 1. Part number 2, a couple more bullet points here from questions. It was clear that licensing is stopping them using any related Pokemon content other than the cards. So I think this is in reference to, I've seen people talking about wanting to have, like in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel game, you can have like a little Kuribu or like a little Yu-Gi-Oh character person, I think, on your side, right? And people were talking about like, why can't I have a little Pokemon character, or why can't I have instead of these ugly avatars, why can't I have like Misty or Ash or Lance, like one of these cool characters from the game? And so I think that's probably what this is in reference to. It's kind of weird that the Pokemon company is having trouble licensing Pokemon intellectual property, but I mean,
Yeah,
things get a
that
little confusing when you're dealing with the Pokemon Company International versus the Pokemon Company versus Creatures versus Game Freak, right? Like, there's definitely a lot of moving parts here, I feel like, right?
Yeah, that's weird. And that's so they're so weird that there's that big of a disconnect that like it almost seems like Pokemon does not trust TPCI, right? The Pokemon
Yeah.
company does not trust TPCI,
You said it,
right? Or
not
that
me.
seems to be the disconnect. I mean, at that point, I almost wonder why didn't just the Pokemon company make? Maybe that's the question we should be asking is why didn't the Pokemon company make a new trading card game client? And maybe TPCI. Like one of the things that I
Or
bring up a lot is
Nintendo.
like or Nintendo, right? Like one of the things I bring up is like they have the money. They are Pokemon, which means they are the Pokemon company, which means they are Nintendo. But maybe this is all in house from TPCI, and they don't actually get the money to put this together besides their own budget, right? So that's one thing I bring up, and I've seen a lot of other people bring it up is that theoretically this is Nintendo. They have the money, but maybe they don't have the money, which then begs the question: is just like why didn't just the Pokemon company just make this client instead? Like that's what I'm curious. That's something now that I've like
Yeah.
read this bullet point. It's like yeah, they can't actually use Pokemon stuff, like which is weird. Besides the cards, like that's a little bit weird. Like does the Pokemon company just not trust TPCI to not ruin the Pokemon image to some extent?
Yeah, it's definitely weird. And now that we kind of are talking about it, it's got me kind of thinking like, I mean, I don't think that the Pokemon Company International has developed any other Pokemon games. Like I think there might be some like little kitty games on the Pokemon website and stuff like that, like little flash games, right?
Yeah.
I think there's some stuff like that, but like when you look at things like Pokemon Unite and Pokemon Masters and Pokemon Go. Like these are all games that are developed not by Nintendo, not by the Pokemon Company, but not by the Pokemon Company International. They're developed by
Yeah.
actual game development studios, right?
Yeah. So I guess I mean that's probably the Pokemon company contracting them to do it though, right? Like that has to be
Well,
the
I mean, yeah, I don't know though because
I mean, it's them or Nintendo, right? It's not. It's one of those two are being like, "Yo, Tencent, make
dude,
this
I
game,"
think the
right?
licensing stuff, I think it does get really weird with like, I think it's like a three-part ownership of the Pokemon brand between Pokemon Creatures and Game Freak. I think like they all have their hands in it and then they're like exclusive to Nintendo console. Like, I don't really, dude, this business stuff, I think is where things get really confusing, right?
Someone up high in the Nintendo side is just like they just need to give TPCI at this point. I guess at this point, I think initially, like, I mean, if we could go back, I would say they needed to go buy, to hire like a game studio, um, and send some people over there who know the Pokemon TCG and give them a butt ton of money. At this point, maybe they should need to give. At this point, though, this is where we are. So maybe they should need to give TPCI some more money and just be like, "Yo, just like here you go. This can give you more people or whatever resources you need to get this game in line because it feels like it's too slow for to me. It still feels like it's taking too long, and that's one thing I'm scared of. Is like we're going to be here for another 2 years still.
Yeah, that's definitely a big concern, right? And then part six here says they said currency is unlikely to change from what we have now, and that Pokemon had no intention to make money from the platform. They want it to be very accessible, which I think is like a very noble cause, a very, good thing to desire. But also at the same time, money's a really good motivator. And if they were making a game that they were intending to make money on, they would maybe be motivated to make it a little better, or if they knew they were going to make money on it, they would have a bigger budget to make the game better because they'd have more people and better people working on it, right?
Yeah, and I think people like. I think people like no one like the one of the things that people disliked about PTCG Live is the fact that they couldn't buy stuff. Like that is one of the things that came
I
up.
think
It's like
some
why
people
can't I
dislike it, but
buy
I think
stuff?
some people are very much. I think as soon as you put money to the game, it does instantly turn some people off of like wanting to play it, especially like something like Yu-Gi-Oh or Magic Arena and stuff like that. I think the idea of pay to win, right, comes to mind for these people. So I understand their thought process of wanting to make it accessible, but I mean, I'm definitely someone who would be fine. Spending $5 on a deck box on PTCG Live. Like it doesn't have to be to buy
Exactly.
the cards. It can be to buy the extra
Cosmetics.
stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and you could be able to buy cards if you could keep it at its current state and just like allow people to buy stuff and get like deck boxes, dice, or I guess not dice, damage counters, deck boxes, coins, and then allow them to buy cards as well. But you could even keep it at its current state of accessibility, right? You don't have to change that if you really don't want to.
Just give people the
Um,
option.
just give people the option, yeah, to just like buy stuff in client, right? Because like nobody wants to be like I'm sure people will build up their collections eventually, but when a new set drops, right? If you just don't have credits and you get on and you want to play with the new cards, nobody wants to go. A lot of people don't. A lot of people like convenience, right? A lot of people don't want to go to a code site and buy a bunch of codes and then input the codes and then open the packs from the codes and then get the credits. They just want to click buy 10,000 credits and then create their new
Yep.
Giratina deck, right? Um, so there's just no reason to not have that there, I feel like, to have that option, and then also create content around it in forms of, or not content, cosmetics around it, with the purpose of those being like, not maybe not purchase only, but obviously make them more expensive to the point where you either got to like grind for a little bit, or you pay $10 for a couple cool deck boxes, right? Or like even like play mats or different animations in the background or whatever, like stuff like that, right? And then you make profit, and then people are happy because you can then hire people to make the cool deck boxes and animations and damage counters and coins, right?
Yeah. So I
So yeah,
mean, it's
it's always a win-win.
unlikely to change though. It does not seem like they
Yep.
want to make money from this game. Um, which I don't think is like the worst thing. But
Yeah, I don't think it's
I
the end of the
I
world.
personally wouldn't mind throwing a few bucks at the game every now and then.
Yeah, if
And
there's
then
cool new cosmetics because of it, for sure.
yeah. And then part three, the final step here from the Callus Network. Once again, big shout outs to them for the info. The UI has been hard to code for. Sorry, the UI has been hard to code for as it needs to fit multiple formats. Phones and iPads are considered important as their data shows that a lot of people use these devices on the old client. So I think that this is something that the general like hardcore PTCGO base does not realize, because I feel like most PTCGO, like the people who are playing in limitless tournaments and the competitive players, are usually playing on a computer or a laptop, right? But I think that a huge amount of the player base of PTCGO, like the Pokemon Trading Card Game Online, like probably 90% of the player base of PTCGO is just random people who have gone to the App Store on their iPad and typed in Pokemon and found the trading card game and play with like little theme decks and play in the little tournaments, right? That is like a huge, like overwhelming majority, most likely, of the PTCGO player base.
Yeah, I would actually be curious to know that number, to be honest, which you can't really see. One thing I will say to this, um, is this isn't something new. Like, if you play Hearthstone on the computer or you play it on your phone, they're both fine and enjoyable. But there's a big disconnect. I've not played PTCG Live on the phone, but I know it's not great on the computer. And that's all I need to know. I don't have to play it on the phone and see it's great to know it still sucks on the computer, right? And kind of going back to like, if you're not going to get the right people to do the job, just don't do it, or go find the right people, right? This is not like, it's like one thing that I actually mentioned earlier in a reply to someone's tweet a couple days ago, was just like, PTCG Live is not doing anything new. And the things they're doing wrong could all be fixed if they just copied another successful trading card game client. This should not be a thing that comes up and is a problem, is that the UI is hard to code for people on for multiple formats, right? Phones, iPads. Like, this is something that everyone does, and it works fine as far as I know, right? People
Yeah.
with the dual links. Like I said, Hearthstone is the main one I've played. It's great on the computer. I prefer it on the computer to the phone, but it's still really good on the phone, right? So this should not be like an excuse, in my opinion. Like, in this day and age, it just shouldn't be an excuse. And like, also, like I
Or
said,
it's
I
like it can be
hold,
true that it's hard to code for, but at the same time, it's like what you're getting
yeah,
paid to do, right?
yeah,
Like
it can be hard to code for. It can be hard to code it, and it
you
could
can
take a
have a
while to
hard
do.
job, right? Like
Yeah, like, that's fine. But like I said, in this day and age, when it's the Pokemon brand, I feel like this should not be something that is a complaint, right? Like, this should not be something that is not a complaint, but an excuse. I guess an excuse would be it. Like, or like a reason that things are tough, right? Like, that shouldn't be one of the reasons. Like, it's been being done for a while now, and it's kind of funny to say, because PTCGO was revolutionary when it released. Like,
yeah.
compared to what was available as far as like playing card games on a computer, PTCGO was the big thing. And then Hearthstone came out, and I feel like that was the next jump in the evolution of card game clients. Like, PTCGO was huge when it released, like, in terms of what you could do and what it was. And then Hearthstone was like the next big step from what I can remember. And then, and now, from at this point, there's a bunch of them that have come out and are successful. And but that's what I'm saying. Like, now that we're getting PTCG Live, PTCGO was a brand new thing. It was doing a bunch of new cool things. PTCG Live is coming up short on what everyone has innovated up to onto this point, and is struggling to just do the things that everything else does so well and smoothly. So, like, yeah, it's another, just feels bad for PTCG Live in that kind of with that kind of mindset on it.
And then the final
Me.
point here, no news on better releases. I don't know if that means like, other areas of getting the beta or anything like that. No news on beta releases, but expecting a big-ish one to come out soon. So stay tuned. Maybe there's something coming soon. But honestly, in the world of Pokemon, coming soon could literally mean three, 4,
2 years.
5 months. Like,
It's
who
probably is just like
knows?
the new layout, right? I would assume the big release, big news
But
is
like
gonna
they
be
had
the new
already announced
layout.
that before this, so it can't, I don't. If that's it, that's sad.
Okay, okay.
It's
I
got
mean,
to be
I
something
guess
better than that.
it says no news on better releases, but expecting a big. Yeah. So is that like a big update? Does that mean a big update or like a big announcement?
I think
If
that
it's a big
means,
update, then I think it would be the board change. If it's a big announcement, then it would be something else, right?
yeah, I guess that's true.
I'd assume.
So, PTCG Live still kind of sitting in limbo, purgatory right now. It's unknown really exactly where things are at, where we're going with it, but we just got to kind of hold our breath and we'll see on the other end, right?
Yep. Just keep hoping, holding out, but like not for too long. Like
Yeah, please
at
not for
some
too long.
yeah, I mean at some point it's just I think becomes a little bit ridiculous. Like and yeah, I mean I don't think there's like I know Andrew's thing is scrap it. But I don't think that's happening at all. I think this is what we're getting. Um and then hopefully it does come out to be a great product at the end of it all. Like that's what I'm saying. Like to close it all out here at the end. I know me and Chip are harsh. I'm very harsh. A lot of the content creators in the space are harsh. That's what a lot of people hear. But we just want it to be good, and it's just uh, it's below the bar when you compare it to anything else out there. And we were all hoping it would be something cool, new, and almost better than the Hearthstones and all that stuff. But it didn't even match them, which doesn't make any sense because they came out before it. How do you not like look at that and take ideas and inspiration from that and either build on it? Or now, at the very least, we're hoping you can build up to that, right? And
Yeah.
match a Hearthstone, match a Magic Arena. But we're not even getting that yet. And the process of it has been grueling, right? And it's been tough on the community, I feel like in general. But hopefully, better days ahead for PTCG Live. But let's move away from that PTCG Live. I always like to rant on it a little bit too much, I feel like, because it is kind of. I mean, I've been hoping for it for so long, but let's move on to something that'll cheer everyone up.
Yeah.
Everyone's favorite segment of the podcast. Guess that flavor text. It's my turn to pick. If you guys don't know what guess that flavor text is, it's where each week me or Chip will pick a card for the other person to try and guess. But the only hint we initially give them is the flavor text on the card. So I'm going to read a flavor text here to Chip. I have to pull it back up again. And then Chip will try and guess what Pokemon that flavor text goes with. And there is 3 lifelines Chip can use if he wants. So if he guesses it without any lifelines, he'll get 4 points. And for each lifeline used, we'll lose a point. And the 3 lifelines are what set the card is from, what stage the card is, and then read an attack name from the card. All right, Chip,
Let's
are
get
you ready?
it. Easy dubs, 4 points incoming. No
All
problem.
right. Its goons take care of most of the fighting for it. The only time it dirties its own hands is in delivering a final blow to finish off an opponent.
Okay, so it's goons, like instantly, obviously. I'm thinking of Zigzagoon, Obstagoon, like that's like instant thoughts. But I know that there's been cards before that have like attacks that say like call for goons. I think there's a card that has that attack. But now
That
that I'm
sounds
saying it,
familiar.
I kind of think it's like a Zigzagoon that has that attack, maybe, or like it's some dark type Pokemon. I feel like. All right, let me hear the flavor text one more time.
Its goons take care of most of the fighting for it. The only time it dirties its own hands is in delivering a final blow to finish off an opponent.
So, I mean, this also could be like, I mean, I think this is obviously like a leader of the pack type Pokemon, right? Because it's getting all the minions to do the dirty work and then coming in to take the final strike. So I could see this being definitely like a stage 1 or stage 2 Pokemon, like a final evolution, and it's using like the previous Evos to do the dirty work. All right, I'm gonna need a little help here. I'm gonna go with what set the card is from for a lifeline. I know 4 pointers for me this week. I'll use one lifeline here.
Lost Origin.
All right. Well, that is helpful. Um, because I know now it is not Obstagoon or Zigzagoon. Lost Origin. This is really uh bad for me that it is the one new set in the last like four sets that I did not do a set review for. So I have not read every single card in the set like I would have previously. So that is definitely hindering me here a bit. I'm probably gonna need a little more help then. Let's do what stage the card is.
Is stage 1.
Okay, evolution, and I will have you read an attack name.
Night Cyclone.
All right, so probably a darkness type Pokemon. I can't even, man, I've like not even opened that much of the set, to be honest. Like I bought one of these new little things that has the 6 booster packs in it. That is all the packs I've opened, is 6 packs. So I haven't even looked at it that much. Oh, maybe it's like a ghost type Pokemon. Could it be I'm thinking of like the cards I got from this. Could it be the new like Hisuian Zoroark, just like the holo, not the V-Star, obviously? It's a stage 1. I don't have anything else to go with. I'm gonna guess that. I don't know that it's right, but we'll go with Hisuian Zoroark.
It is not Hisuian Zoroark. It is Honchkrow.
Bro, and yours was Murkrow last week. No shot.
I read its flavor text. I was like, this is a good one. I don't want to forget about this one.
So you just went ahead and used it?
Yeah, it's Goons. I thought you were gonna get it because, like, I mean, that is like that is like what the a lot of the cards like do. Like the Honchkrows get involved with the Murkrow and all that stuff. So
there are 2 cards that have the Call for Goons attack. That's what I was really stuck on.
I was remembering it. What are the Pokemon though?
There's one that it's a Thievul from Shining Fates, and then there's the Salamence Delta Evolution promo card from like the Roaring Skies time frame.
Call for Goons.
So it was Honchkrow of the new set, though.
Yeah.
Dang, you got me there with the man. Because I gave you the Murkrow last week, and just the crow really throws us off, I guess, huh?
I didn't even think about that, but yeah,
Oh
it did. Yeah, you did. It was not in my thought process at all when I picked it. I was just like, this has a funny flavor text with the it's Goons.
Sending the Goons. Take
all
care
right.
of
Well, I
this
guess
Goons.
we're still all tied up, and that's gonna do it for the flavor text this week. We'll see if I can pull ahead of Chip next week. Finally, I don't know if I've ever been in the lead. I don't. Who's the first person to guess one? Actually,
You definitely
I think
have
I've
been in the lead.
Yeah, I
I
think I'm the
got
only
the
one who's
lead
been
for
in
the
the lead.
first time.
Oh, you did, yeah.
I got 3-2. Yeah, you were in the lead most of the time.
This week we've got the last set of major tournaments of this format before Lost Origins is legal. We got Baltimore Regionals. Lost Origin is legal. We got Baltimore Regionals. There's regionals in Sao Paulo, I believe, and then there's the special event over
It's in Porto Alegre.
Okay,
which is still in Brazil.
Yeah, in Brazil. And then Bilbao Special Event. It's back. Everyone's favorite special event, the premier event of the year, happening in Europe. So 3 more events in this format. I'll be playing in Baltimore. I kind of wish it was Lost Origin though, to be honest. Like I wish like it just like they pushed it back a week.
These regionals are always so awkward where it's like the new set is out, but it's not legal yet, right? And it makes sense why the new set's not legal. Can you imagine if you were trying to play Giratina V-Star at the first regionals of the season, and you all of a sudden before the tournament, before you even have a chance to see if the deck is good, before you've even had adequate time to test, you have to pay like pre-order prices or like pre-release prices because you want to make sure the cards get to you in time, right? Like, man, like, because you probably would have ordered Giratina stuff, right? So you would have had to be, it would have been like 40-50 bucks a card probably. So it's a good thing that they're not legal, but I think they really should try to plan these events better around the release schedule, because these events just feel so disconnected from the excitement around the new set, right?
I mean, that's kind of like we talked about it earlier in the podcast. That's just more of the disconnect between TOs and TPCI. Like, this is more of that, right? Like, why does this first regional of the season not sign up or not line up with like the legality date of Lost Origin, right? Or maybe it was I guess maybe it was supposed to, right? Because actually Lost Origin got delayed, so maybe we
It
can't hold
did.
this one. Maybe we can't hold this one over their head. Maybe this one we can't hold over their head, to be honest. Maybe this one they get a pass on this one, but it doesn't make up for everything else. Like I'm just letting you know that if you're listening from this and you work at TPCI, it's not like a you get a pass, you don't get like a gold star. You know what I'm saying? Like we're just not taking away a gold. We're not taking away a gold star. So yeah, I guess that's fair, right? Or Lost Origin release did get delayed, so theoretically, if it got released, 2 weeks prior, would it have been legal for Worlds if it didn't get delayed? Or
I mean,
no,
I
not
think that's
quite.
always what their goal has been the last couple of years, right? Is for the new set to be legal for the world championships. It just didn't
Yeah,
quite happen that way.
yeah.
Um,
This
so
time it's this time around it makes sense actually to be honest. So we're not going to harp too much more on the TOs and TPCI for this one, I guess. But yeah, it does feel awkward. People don't care as much about the format's a little bit played out, especially because like the Pokemon Go set didn't change up too much. And yeah, the new set's out, so no one really cares too much about the current play. I haven't played any of the previous format. I played very little, if any, testing for Baltimore. But like, I mean, I have most of the knowledge I need to, figure out what I'm going to play for it. But yeah, I'm like less excited for it, more excited for Peoria, to be honest.
I think that's where a lot of the competitive players kind of sit, but like everyone is still going to this tournament because, I mean, I think a lot of people are going obviously one because it's the first regional of the season. So there's a lot of people who this will be their first regional. So, um, that is definitely something that is exciting for those players. And
Yep.
then also, all the competitive players are obviously trying to compete to get championship points to try to earn stipends towards the Oceania International Championships. Because if there's one international to earn a stipend for, it's definitely Oceania because it is the most expensive one to get to by far.
Except for
So
the players who live in Australia. For them,
right,
it's
right, they're vibing, but they don't
yeah,
even know anything about their tournaments yet. So that is
yeah.
just
But they might not have any regionals.
unfortunate.
They might be playing cups challenges and an IC to get their points, as far as they know.
Yeah, so much has been announced. It's great. It's so good. Um, but let's talk a little bit about Baltimore. Talk about the meta. Talk about what we think will be good. What we think people will play. How is the meta going to shape up? So we've only had one event in this format, and it was Worlds. So the biggest event theoretically, where the most testing of the year went into. Obviously, the meta is not too different from the previous format, right? Pokemon Go really only brought two cards into the competitive landscape, being Radiant Charizard and Pokestop. There was a couple things are lying around there. The Lunatone Soul Rock, definitely a pretender, not a real deck. Don't play Lunatone Soul Rock if you're a super competitive player and hoping to like win the tournament. That is not the deck to play, I don't think, for
No,
Baltimore.
definitely
If it's your favorite deck and
not.
it's your first, like, if you obviously, I'm not going to tell anyone what to play. I don't want to get canceled or called out, right? Play what you want to play, have fun. But this is a competitive Pokemon TCG podcast. If you want to win the tournament, I'm going to tell you
Yeah,
that's a bad play.
yeah. Don't play Lunatone Soul Rock if you're trying to win. I think like the top two decks I think are pretty solidified in the Palkia and Teleon and the Mew. Right now, Mew's kind of made a bounce back after Worlds, pretty big. So I expect those to be the two most popular decks in the room. I expect it to be a pretty open meta though in general. Though I don't think it's going to be those will be making up like 50% of the meta.
So you
It'll be
don't
like
think there will be
maybe
that much Flying Pikachu?
I don't. It feels kind of like the same thing that happened at NIC. It had some steam immediately after I won with it. Same thing with Andre. Had some steam. And I think if the event had taken place the week after Worlds, there would have been a lot of Flying Pikachu. And there would have been a lot of people trying to hate on Flying Pikachu. But the meta developed a little bit more. And I think it's not an overly enjoyable deck to play because it's pretty vanilla. And then also I don't think it's like head and shoulders. It's not like it's a deck that is like meta specific more so, not too meta specific, but it's really good. It's a good against Palkia, and then especially like the lists that did specifically well at Worlds, the 1, 2, and 3, they were pretty teched out for other Arceus decks too, right? I feel like they were a little bit prepared for a more narrow meta, and it worked out, of course. And yeah, so that it was great for that. But I think I would personally go back to like Crobat VMAX and stuff because I expect Mew to be more popular at Baltimore than it was at Worlds and stuff like that. I don't think it's gonna be in the top two. I think it'll be like number three, number four most popular decks. I think it's still a very strong play, but not quite as good when the meta is a little bit more open. I feel like.
So, I mean, if we're looking at the world's results, top eight or top cut, I guess the top nine, we've got Palkia, we've got Arceus Flying Pikachu, and we've got one Mew VMAX. It definitely does feel like Mew VMAX has picked up quite a bit more in popularity. People are remembering, okay, this deck is extremely powerful. There was another Mew VMAX player sitting at 10th place, a couple more in the top 32. So it did have a pretty good showing at Worlds.
Yeah,
But
had
I
a
think
solid
that
one.
my one of the questions that I'd like to pose and for us to look at. So if you, I mean, obvious. So this is like the tournament that people are gonna kind of base their deck decision on, because, or like their metagame calling on, is gonna be like, where do things go kind of after Worlds, right? Because it's the big event of the format. If you look at the top 32 decks and you are going to be a 33rd person in this tournament, you see the 32 decks that people are playing, what deck do you think you would choose, knowing exactly how this meta breaks down? You've got three people who are playing Arceus Flying Pikachu, or sorry, four people playing Arceus Flying Pikachu, a ton of Palkia and Teleon, a couple of Mew VMAX sprinkled in there, the couple Reggie Gigas sprinkled in, a few other rogue things. Are you just going to run it with Arceus Flying Pikachu?
I mean, if I look at that, yeah, but I think the meta developed a little bit after that. I think people have thought about it a little bit more than that. I think it's definitely developed to the point where Flying Pikachu is a deck off of people's radar as far as choice goes, and like a deck that people expect to kind of show up as like a threat for sure. Because I actually don't think it's like that ridiculously strong. It's one of my top considerations for the tournament, Flying Pikachu. Um, but it's not like that ridiculously strong. I feel like it is a little bit better in a more narrow meta because you know exactly, like, do you want to play the Decidueye? Do you want to play the Crobat? Those are pretty big things to cut into as far as your what energy types you play. Do you go with all three, the Pikachu, the Decidueye, and the Crobat, right? So in a little bit more of a narrow meta, I feel like it's a little bit stronger. But I still think it's a very good deck. But it's not. I mean, because we kind of saw it right from NAIC to Worlds. Flying Pikachu, there was like no bad matchups that came out of the Pokemon Go set for Flying Pikachu. If anything, Radiant Zard was the only deck to really show any real prevalence, or Lunatone and Solrock, which both lose to Flying Pikachu, right? And you look at Worlds, and nobody played Flying Pikachu besides like the four people in top 32, three of which were one, two, and three. I feel
Yeah.
like um we entered the same cycle that happened after NIC where people were like, oh, the joke is like or the deck is like okay, but it's kind of a meme. It's actually not that good. Palkia is fine into it. Actually, Palkia is favored. Okay, I'm gonna play Palkia. I'm not gonna play Flying Pikachu. So I wouldn't be surprised if Flying Pikachu just three-peated because of people's lack of understanding of how good the deck actually is and kind of disrespecting it, to be
So you
honest.
don't think it'll be that popular, but you do
Yeah.
think it's like a solid enough play for the
Yes.
event, like changing it up a
Definitely.
little bit from Worlds. Like, I would assume you're probably not a fan of the Jolteon memory capsule stuff. You probably, because like your base of
Not
this deck
yeah.
is Arceus Bieberel, right? And then Flying Pikachu is just the best partner, right?
Yeah, yeah, basically. And I think the Jolteon was a very good call for Worlds because it was a more narrow meta and Inteleon is just the way people are going to gravitate towards. But I think, Reggie's making a comeback. Arceus B-Barrel is more of a deck now after Worlds. Like Jolteon is just not as good going forward. So I think Jolteon's not very good in there. I think people will play Jolteon and some could definitely see success because there will be a lot of Palkia and you can always Path Marnie out a Mew deck so you can still beat them no matter what with a good Path Marnie. So but yeah, I would definitely stick with the B barrel build for sure.
So I think that another question that begs to be asked here would be, how much, like you yourself said, you haven't put that much time into the testing for this tournament, right? And I think that probably most competitive players find themselves in that spot where they, after World, especially like people who played at Worlds, right? They find themselves like a little burnt out. They've played so much Pokemon, the fall. So a lot of people are going back to college who are competitive players. People getting back into the swing of their work life and stuff, people preparing for the new set, the new season. This tournament kind of gets put to the wayside in a lot of people's minds and preparation. So, at what point do people just say, okay, screw it, I'm just going to roll up with the deck that I played for Worlds or the deck that I know well? Or like we'll say, I'll just play the best deck, Palkia and Tellian, and call it a day and just see what happens, and not put too much more thought into it.
I mean, actually, I think that's the mindset that most people have for most tournaments. I think that is actually one of the things that holds back a lot of players from kind of growing as players is you got to get out there, you got to play a different deck and try it out, and you'll learn so much more about the game and get better at the game when you put down the Palkia deck and go pick up the Arceus B barrel and learn how to play that deck, right? Like you don't want to just play one deck for the whole format. Sure, maybe you go back to it for every major tournament because after you try a bunch of other stuff out, you had to like, well, oh, this is better than Palkia and Teleon, which is true, but then you have to play a bunch of Palkia and Teleon mirrors the whole day. So if you enjoy that, go for it. It's not something I enjoy, so I'd rather beat him up with a Pikachu. But um, yeah, I mean, I think it's like the mindset that people have for most tournaments in general, whether it be, I guess Worlds is maybe a little bit different. I think Worlds is definitely a little bit different because people I think definitely are trying to get crazy. But I think you don't want to also have the mindset of, oh, I'm just going to play something different for the sake of playing something different as well. You want a balance to it of where you're just trying to find, the way I always think about it is I'm always just trying to find the best deck for the tournament. So
Sure.
I think that is kind of already the mindset a lot of people have. So I think it's what we will see. We'll just see a lot of people being like, this is my favorite deck, or this is the deck I know the best. So I'm just going to go with the comfort pick.
So we kind of, you said what you think the two big decks are. I agree for sure. Mew VMAX and then Palkia Inteleon. So I assume you would also agree that one of those two decks will be the most popular deck.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um,
It'll be. I actually
which one of
did.
the two do you think?
I'm currently. I was giving the edge to Mew in my initial thought process of the meta, but I think I'm currently giving. Now I'm giving the edge to Palkia. Because I think we've had enough time for the Mew hype to die down, but Palkia is not going anywhere, especially when people are showing up to a major tournament to pick a deck. It's like, why not just play? And Palkia is the best deck in the format. I don't think that's really arguable, right? The easiest to tech out for whatever matchup. You can even put Grabominable in there and beat Mewtwo V Union, right? So like the deck can be teched however you want it to beat for whatever you want to beat. Put Empoleon in there to really beat up on the Lunatone Soul Rocks, right? Like you have so many options and stuff. So like the deck is definitely the best deck in the format.
Or
So
put the Empoleon in there if you're getting ready to beat up on some comfies.
yeah, I think that's going to become a staple in
Yeah.
Lost Origins format. That's going to become a staple for sure. So I now I'm trying to lean toward, as we get closer to the event. I think Palkia Inteleon will be probably the most popular deck, but I wouldn't be like, I'm not going to be shocked when if it is Mew. One of those two for sure. My bet would be on Palkia. I think though.
Yeah, I think I definitely lean towards Palkia Inteleon being the most popular, for sure, in my mind. But once again, it kind of goes back to that. Okay, if Palkia is the most popular deck in the room, Arceus Flying P, like you said, does seem pretty solid.
It's not
Um,
going to be that popular.
but
It'll be
like,
like
how
a
many people
50%.
recognize that? How many people recognize and think like, okay, Palkia is still the best deck. I just want to beat the best deck. And people like playing Arceus. And also, let's not forget, Pikachu, the mascot of the whole franchise. I'm sure there's plenty, and Bidoof as well. Like people love these Pokemon. I feel like that. I mean, I don't think it's unreasonable for Arceus Flying P to hold a reasonable meta share at this event.
I mean, yeah, like I said, I think I'll be like 3 or 4 most popular decks, but I don't. It's just weird. Some decks just have like a stigma around them, or I mean, obviously, like stuff like control decks never get super popular. It doesn't matter how good they are, right? Pidgey
Sure.
Control was arguably the BDIF or second best deck in the format for a while, but it wasn't going to bring up that big of a meta percentage, right? Compared to stuff like Pikarom or Mewtwo at the time. Um, and then you look at something like Flying Pikachu. Some decks like that, like the Flying Pikachu Arceus, like they have a weird stigma around them where it's like, obviously the hype of any deck winning a tournament will drive its popularity, like it did when I won NAIC or Andre won Worlds. But after that, and especially because there was like a decent amount of time, there was nothing after NAIC for people to play Flying Pikachu at. And then after Worlds, there's been a big break between Worlds and Baltimore. So there's time for it to kind of develop around like, okay, well, this deck definitely isn't the best deck in the format. It's got these bad matchups and those bad matchups, and oh, Reggie can get tough if I don't play the Dunsparce, if they have the Boss Orders and the Escape Ropes, or whatever, like whatever reasoning you put behind it. And I think it is just one of those decks that has a stigma around it, where when it's not the BDIF and it is a little bit goofy because of the Flying Pikachu, like people are just gonna get turned off by wanting to play the deck. And I think it is harder to play in the sense that if you misplay, I feel like you get more punished when you misplay with Flying Pikachu Arceus than you would with like a Palkia and Teleon deck. Like you misplay and you're done. That's it. The game's over. But if you misplay with Palkia and Teleon, it's just like, I'll just use another Shady Dealings or something. Like there's just like you have so many more scapegoats once your hand develops like past turn one.
You have
Um,
less to fall back on whenever you're only getting to use Bibarel for 2 every turn versus
yeah,
Inteleon for any piece of your entire deck, right?
exactly. Right. You'll always execute a game plan. You might pick the wrong game plan, but you'll execute a game plan with Palkia and Teleon because you shaded dealings for your 2 cards. But with B Barrel, there's so much more preparation around thinning out your deck and playing towards, 2 turns ahead. Like you're playing towards B Barrel drawing you into that boss's orders
Yeah.
or whatever.
In this many turns, I need to hit this card, so I need to play these things in this order type of things.
Yeah, yeah, and there's of course some of that with every deck, but yeah, I feel like it's just one of the deck in the format that we're in. It's just there's a stigma around it, and there's just always been like decks like that in the past. Like I said, control decks are an easy one to look at, where it's just like doesn't matter how good the deck is, it's not going to be that popular. And I feel like we've had enough time where the hype will not carry the popularity of Arceus Flying Pikachu. Like I said, it's in my top 3 picks for Baltimore, but I don't think it'll be in the top 2 most popular decks, or will even be like fighting for a slot against Palkia or Mew.
Sure. So something to get away from all these boring V Max V Star decks.
Oh,
Which
and
of
also
the
like I mean, like
two?
I said, like like you said, like it beats the best deck. Why wouldn't more people play it? I mean, we saw the results at Worlds. Like everyone just played the best deck, and then it did do that, but not a lot of people took that idea, and it wasn't like 50% Palkia, 50% Flying Pikachu in top 32. You know?
And the meta won't be as heavy to Palkia most likely at Baltimore. Like a
Oh yeah, it's
thousand
not going to
people at
be
the
like the
tournament, there's not going to be 500 Palkias. Can
no,
you
it'll be like
imagine?
15. It'll be like 15% probably.
Bro, the whole place would be flooded. Way too much water, bro. So all these boring V stars, V maxes, whatever. Some of the most exciting decks for me out of Worlds were the single prizers doing well. I think that people just love to see, the little guy standing up to the big behemoths of the format, right? So we've got the Radiant Charizard deck that Ross Cawthon played, got top 16 with. It's definitely been a lot more popular since Worlds, and I do
Oh
think the
yeah.
deck is super strong, and it's really fun to play as well. Finding ways to recycle this one little Charizard turn after turn after turn. And then also Reggie Gigas, which got 2 placements in the top 32. So we've got 2 single prize decks here. Of the 2, which one would you peg to place higher? And do you think it would be a top 8 spot? Or, are we looking at like probably similar to Worlds? One makes it into top 16, a couple more in top 32 type thing.
So the Radiant Charizard deck is really hard to play. I think it is better than Reggie. I wouldn't be surprised if either made top 8. I don't think Reggie's bad. I think it's just a bad deck to pick if your goal is to do well, because I think there's just so much more left up to chance with Reggie, right? Than a Radiant Zard deck. I think the Radiant Zard deck is super good. I don't think you really lose heavily to any of the major decks. Even Flying Pikachu, if they don't rock Roxanne, like I feel like Marnie doesn't really do that much, and you have some solid lines to get around the Flying Pikachu. You could even, if you're really scared of that matchup, you could throw in like an escape rope to really help you out and make that matchup a lot better. And if no one's running Roxanne in their Flying Pikachu B Barrel decks, then like they have no way to hard lock you out towards the end of the game. So yeah,
Yeah, I
Radiant
don't think
Zard would
people
be
will be playing Roxanne. And I don't know that people should be
yeah.
playing Roxanne in Arceus Flying Pikachu.
Uh,
I mean, you might feel different. Obviously, you won with a Roxanne in your deck, but I listened to an interview with Andre on the Tag Team podcast. And one of the things he talked about was how when he was testing Arceus Flying Pikachu for Worlds, kind of one of the early decisions he came to was that he just shouldn't play the Roxanne because it's a one of in a deck where you can't go fetch it out at any time like you can with Inteleon, right? So just rather play for Marnie, and Marnie path is still pretty good through the middle of the game. So if you brick your opponent for a couple turns off Marnie path, that's going to be good enough usually anyway,
yeah.
compared to Roxanne in the late game.
Yeah, I mean for the list Andre played for what he expected, I think that's fine. But like against the Mew matchup and the Charizard matchup, like the Roxanne does a lot. It just does a lot, and especially when you play something like if you play something like the Luminion, you can just go find it. Especially against the Mew matchup, right? Either they're not doing very much because they didn't bump your stadium, or they bumped your stadium, so then you can go Luminion for Roxanne, play Roxanne, right? And then against the Radiant Charizard matchup, you just have enough time to find it. And no amount of Marnie slows that deck down. The Radiant Charizard deck, once it sets up, does not care if you Marnie them every single turn in a row. 4 cards is a lot of cards for that deck to work with. So, um, yeah, I definitely like the Roxanne more headed into Baltimore. I think for Andre's list and what he was trying to beat, I think it makes sense to not play Roxanne. But moving into Baltimore, I think I would rock the Roxanne for sure.
Rock the Roxanne. For me, I think between the two, which one I think would place higher is probably Radiant Charizard, because I do think the deck is better. I think there will be more Reggie Gigas doing well, though, through the tournament because,
Yeah,
like you mentioned, the Charizard deck is harder to play. But I think, I wouldn't be surprised to see some really good players pick the deck up and try to do well with it. I would not be surprised to see
super
either of
good.
these 2 decks in top 8, similarly to you. So another fun one here, a surprise pick for top 8. So obviously, I think we're expecting to see Palkia make top 8. We wouldn't be surprised to see Mews and Arceus Flying Pikachus, or even Radiant Zard or Reggie. We wouldn't be super surprised to see any of these things kind of sneak their way into top 8. Do you have any other surprises, though? Is there anything out there that you think might find a way to sneak its way in? One of these other kind of rogue decks or tier 3 decks, like these things that pop up every once in a while?
I would go with like maybe Arceus Aggron to be honest, because like that deck, like
The Aggron.
yeah, I think I mentioned it maybe on the podcast last week or the week before. It was when I looked at the deck, I was like, this deck looks terrible. There's no way. But then I played it and I was like, well, it actually kind of works out. You win a lot of games, more than I thought you would. So yeah, I'll give it to the Arceus Aggron. I know some people like play like it was played towards the the end of the format. Like people actually play the deck. It wasn't like one of those decks that is like looks weird, is weird. One person makes a top 8 at a regional and then no one picks it up and tries to make it work. Um, but no, some people were playing it, so I think yeah, I'm gonna give it to the Arceus Aggron because actually the deck's pretty cool.
My answer is going to be the same as it was for the World Championships. It didn't make top 8, but there was one player in the top 32, Christian
Oh
Labella, playing
no,
the Arceus Duraludon. Now,
deck is so bad.
I don't think Arceus Duraludon is very good, but I mean, you can't deny that like it just has auto wins or like really positive matchups out there. Like the deck, and it does lose to those positive matchups sometimes, but you know, every deck loses to its positive matchups sometimes. I think that, you know, on paper Arceus Duraludon has a shot. Has a shot.
I could see like talking about Arceus Rada made me think about Milwaukee. I could see Blissey actually squeaking in. Like I wouldn't be surprised to see a Blissey
Or a Mewtwo V Union as
there. Yeah,
well.
that could also do it. Or
There was a
definitely
little
some
bit of Mewtwo V Union hate from the Palkia lists at Worlds. Do you think people keep those techs
crabs.
in the crabs and the Empoleons and stuff? Empoleon is also like don't underestimate Empoleon as an answer to Mewtwo V Union. Not because the Empoleon itself does anything to the Mewtwo itself, but because the only way that the Mewtwo V Union deck functions is by using Gormandize every single turn for the first like 10 turns, and you can't use Gormandize if there's an Empoleon in the active, right?
Yeah. I don't know. The Crabombo was like okay as an answer for that. I don't know if it does too much else outside. I guess it can. It's never a terrible attacker, right? If you play Goon and Quick Shooting, like, kind of like James and Kywin
Oh,
did.
I think it
Um,
like can one hit KO a Duraludon, right? So
yeah, and Stone Journer. Like I mean, that's what
yeah,
I'm saying. Like even if you go up against like a mirror match, it's not like opening it would suck, but it's not truly dead. You could attack with it turn 2, I guess, right? But it's like one of those things where I think it's only really good against those high HP Pokemon in 1,000-person tournament where those decks are going to be making up 1-2% of the meta share. I probably wouldn't specifically rock a counter for the Mewtwo V Union. But like I would probably like if I played Palkia Ice Rider, I would probably play the Empoleon for sure. Like because the Empoleon in there is like good against Reggie, and then it's also good against that matchup. So it has a little bit more versatility.
and speaking of the Palkia Ice Rider, a deck that you played at Worlds, you yourself got a top 32 finish, and testing partner Grant Manley got top 16 with it. Deck does seem pretty decent still. I know between Milwaukee and NAIC, you didn't really see a reason to change off of Flying Pikachu. You made a couple adjustments. Is this kind of a similar situation for you going into Baltimore? Like you played the deck, it did pretty well at Worlds, you're a couple wins away, whatever it was. Things didn't quite go your way to get into top 8. You know, you made top 16 at Milwaukee into winning NAIC. You know, we're going top 32 at Worlds into top 8ing Baltimore with the same deck.
I'm definitely less confident in Palkia. Palkia Ice Rider is probably my 4th pick right now. Like I usually like try and go to like a top 2, top 3 going into a tournament.
They don't have your list on Limitless.
Yeah, I just never tweeted it out or anything.
It's the same as
It's just a list
Grants,
that
yeah.
yeah, it's just the same as Grants. Yeah, I just like really like the deck, but I don't think I would play it. Like I think there's gonna be a little bit too much Mew for my liking, so I'm not gonna play. I wouldn't play the Ice Rider Palkia. I think it's a very good deck. You do have a really good matchup spread, to be honest. You can kind of beat anything, which is why I really liked the deck overall. Like, there's no bad matchups. You have some really good matchups as well. Like your Arceus, your matchup against Arceus decks in general is just insanely good. Got some really good matchups. Don't have really many that bad matchups, but the Mew, like I said, the Mew, I'm expecting it to be most popular, second most popular deck. So I'm currently straying away from the Ice Rider. But if I really can't pick between anything else, it is one of my favorite decks to play in the format in that format right now. So I would maybe consider it just because of that. If I really can't feel that comfortable about anything else.
And then one more deck I wanted to talk about for sure. Something that was touted as one of the best decks for Worlds and was pretty absent from Worlds. Maybe
One
it's
in
picked up a
16.
little bit in play now, and that is the classic, good old fashioned Arceus Intellion, just the basic water version. Um, the Sharon's Cares, kind of the Arceus that we knew for the last 5-6 months that just really didn't do much at the World Championships. Do you think there's
Yeah.
any cause for that deck to have a resurgence, or is the fact that it doesn't have a great Palkia matchup still too much for it?
I think it will have a resurgence. I think it'll be for a lot of bad reasons that the players who choose to play it, and probably some poor judgment. Or maybe just a love of Arc Intel. I think it is a little bit. It's kind of funny. I think it is a little bit more of an American deck as well. So,
That's true.
um, I think it is a little bit of an American deck. So I think that will lead to it being a little bit more played in Baltimore. There's no real hype behind it, but I don't think that really has too much. I think it will be. Yeah, we'll see a little bit of a resurgence. Not too much. It's not going to be like the top. It's not going to be Mew, Arcantel, Palkia like it has been in the past. I think it'll be like fifth, sixth most popular deck. It'll probably be right there, and maybe it could bump up to maybe like fourth, but I still don't think the deck's very good. So I wouldn't recommend playing it, but I think it'll be a little bit more popular than we've been seeing.
And I think there is cause to like the deck for this weekend, right? Like if you think Arceus flying, like if you just look at the world's results and you're not following the online meta, you're not listening to the podcasts, you're not watching Twitter and stuff like that. You just look at the world's results. You see Flying Pikachu 1, 2, 3. Um, those decks, all three of those lists look like they lose to Arc Intel with Dunsparce, right?
Well,
Um,
I mean, two of them have Jolteon and Decidueye. So I think those, like the Jolteon list, I think you're
okay,
probably
sure,
unfavored
sure.
against. But
But I don't think
like I
anyone's
said,
really expecting Jolteon to be
yeah,
the mainstay, right? Like I would be.
I don't think so. No.
I think most people who play Arceus Flying P are gonna go after the winning list with the Bibarel, because Bibarel is generally just consistency is good. The
Yeah.
Jolteon lists from the Japanese players are very clunky, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
You just try
it,
and make your opponent's deck clunky as well and be like, all right, here we go.
yes, exactly, exactly. Um, and the fact that everything in the deck attacks for 2 energy attachments like makes it work enough, right?
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. Yeah,
So
no, I could see that. Yeah, and if you do slap a Dunsparce in there to deal with the Decidueyes, you are definitely favorable. You have your ordinary route to recover. It doesn't matter if they play 4 boss. Having to go away to boss Dunsparce multiple times is not ideal. Um, so yeah, no, I could definitely see it like that being one of people, but I think that's a misguided reason or a poor judgment call still in the end. Like I don't think Arc B Barrel is going to be that popular or Arc Flying Peak in general. So I think it would be a poor reason to play Arceus when you're just going to get bopped by Muse and Palkias probably all day.
well, any last closing thoughts before we close things out here for Baltimore regionals? You're going to be playing, competing. Um, it doesn't feel like you were mentioning. It's not, these in between tournaments at the end of a format. Whenever the new sets come out, it's kind of like thrown off to the side. How do you expect that mentality for a lot of players to play a role in like kind of just the overall emotion of the event and like how you finally decide on a deck?
Um, I mean, I pretty much have all the information I want, from the format to like make a deck decision. So I'm not too worried about that. I don't think it'll like. I think people will be a little bit maybe lazier with their deck choice, like you kind of mentioned, than maybe uh, you know, other tournaments that would have happened in this format. People will be a little bit lazier, right? Like just comfort picks, best decks. There's a lot of Palkia play the Pikachu, right? Those kind of like where they would have put a little bit of extra thought in and maybe played something different, right? Tried a little bit harder to make that meta call. So a little bit lazier of a tournament. Yeah, I think I mean it does like you mentioned, like it does kind of feel like maybe people will like the emotions of the tournament just feels like a little bit more relaxed or lax of a tournament because it's not the new format. And a lot of people will probably excited to be playing the new cards. I'm sure a lot of people will have new decks on them to play, throughout the weekend, where that after they've dropped or just, on Sunday when they're done playing or whatever. A lot of people are going to have the new cards with them to be playing with. And maybe even the side events will allow new cards as well. So people will be able to test out some of their decks at the side events. We'll see. But no, I'm excited to be there. If you see me and want to say what's up, be sure to do. I still have a couple of the dice on me because I forgot to bring them to Worlds. Uh, I forgot to bring the dice with me to Worlds. So I have a couple uncommon energy dice on me, and I'll have them at Baltimore Regional. So if you want one, just say what's up and ask me for a die, and I'll hook you up. But excited to play and compete again, though, for sure this weekend. Any last comments from you, Chip, heading to Baltimore?
I don't think so. Yeah, excited to see kind of what ends up doing well. I mean, am I excited? I'm kind of excited.
No.
No, I'm excited. I always love seeing the results of Pokemon tournaments. I hope my hope for Baltimore is that someone just really sends the format out with a bang and like Aggron VMAX wins the event. Like something crazy,
That'd
you
be
know.
sick. That would be cool. Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping to see and hopefully it'll happen. We'll see though this weekend.
Yeah.
And thanks to all of you for listening, following along with us here, either on YouTube or on your favorite podcasting platforms. And if you want to support the podcast, the best way to do that right now is to subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're closing in on 3,000 subscribers here on YouTube, or by leaving a rating on your podcasting platform. Those things go a long way in helping new people find the podcast. So we really appreciate all the support as always. And if you want to follow along with us, with our Pokemon journeys, with our lives, you can do that over on social media. The best place to do that really is just Twitter. You can follow myself at Trainer Chip. You can follow Azul at Azul_GG. And you, of course, can also follow the Uncommon Energy podcast at Uncommon_Energy.
Yep. Thanks to everyone, as always, for all the support. Good luck to anyone going to any tournaments this weekend. A couple regionals and the special event over in Bilbao. And we'll catch you all next Tuesday at 7 a.m. Eastern. Peace.